They left me in a nursing home and said, "You don't belong at the funeral." But when I came back with the will, everything changed. This is a story about betrayal, resilience, and the power of second chances. If you've ever been underestimated, this one's for you. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. Stories like this only work when shared, so let's get started. The day they left me behind. The last thing my son said to me was, "Mom, you're not well enough to travel." But I knew the truth, they just didn't want me there. I sat in that stiff-backed chair by the window of my room at Maplewood Nursing Home, watching the rain slide down the glass like tears. My hands, wrinkled and dotted with age spots, clutched the letter from my brother's lawyer. "Regret to inform you, funeral arrangements, immediate family only." Immediate family. And yet here I was, his only sister, being told I wasn't welcome. Mark had come by earlier, his tie perfectly knotted, his voice smooth like he was explaining something to a child. "It's a long drive, Mom. The stress, the emotions, it's not good for your heart." Lisa hovered behind him, nodding along, her manicured fingers gripping his arm like she was afraid I'd argue. But I didn't. Not then. Instead, I just smiled, that tight, practiced smile I'd perfected over years of biting my tongue. "Of course, sweetheart. You're right." The moment they left, though, my chest burned. Not from my weak heart, but from the lie. Because I knew why they didn't want me there. The nursing home was quiet at night. The kind of quiet that made you feel like the world had forgotten you. The hallway lights dimmed at 9, casting long shadows across the linoleum floor. I waited until the night nurse, a tired-looking woman named Brenda, finished her rounds before I reached under my mattress and pulled out the envelope I'd hidden there. The voicemail had come 2 days ago, a clipped, professional voice saying, "Ms. Carter, this is regarding your brother's estate. There's a matter of a missing document. Please call back at your earliest convenience." Missing document. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the letter again. There was something they weren't telling me. Then, just as I was about to tuck it away, I heard voices outside my door. Mark's voice. "Just keep her here until it's over. Once the will's settled, it won't matter." Lisa's reply was hushed but sharp. "And if she finds out?" A pause. Then Mark, lower, colder. "If she finds out about the will, we're screwed." My breath caught. The will. Suddenly, it all made sense. I spent the next hour staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. My brother, Charles, had always been private. We hadn't spoken much in the last decade, not since the argument over the family land. But blood was blood. And now he was gone, and my own son was scheming to keep me from his funeral.
Why?
I thought about the house, the big, old Victorian on Elm Street where we'd grown up. The one Charles had lived in until the end. Had he left it to me? Was that what Mark was afraid of? A bitter laugh escaped me. All these years, I'd assumed my son cared about my health. But no, he cared about my money. My hands curled into fists. That's when I made my decision. If they wouldn't take me to the funeral, I'd find my own way. The next morning, I dressed carefully, a navy blue dress, the one I'd worn to my husband's funeral 10 years ago. I tucked the lawyer's letter into my purse, along with the little cash I'd saved from my monthly allowance. Brenda stopped me in the hallway. "Going somewhere, Evelyn?" I gave her my best frail old lady smile. "Just to the garden, dear. Need some air." She bought it. The garden led to the parking lot. The parking lot led to the bus stop. And the bus stop? That led to Redwood Falls. Home. My heart pounded as I stepped onto the bus, my knees protesting every movement. But for the first time in years, I felt alive. Because I was done being left behind. And when I got to that funeral, oh, they were going to regret ever underestimating me. The escape. The bus smelled like stale coffee and worn-out leather. I clutched my purse tighter as the engine rumbled to life, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to break free. I hadn't done something this reckless in decades. The driver, a burly man with a salt and pepper beard, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Redwood Falls, huh? That's a long ride for someone your age." I forced a smile. I've had longer. He shrugged and pulled onto the highway. Outside the window, Maplewood shrank into the distance, its brick walls and manicured lawns looking more like a prison than a retirement home. I exhaled slowly. I was out. Now I just had to stay out. 3 hours in, my knees ached from sitting too long. The arthritis had been getting worse, but I refused to shift in my seat, refused to let the pain show. Weakness was what they expected from me. Weakness was why they thought they could lock me away and forget about me. I reached into my purse and pulled out the letter again, tracing the lawyer's embossed letterhead with my thumb. Hartwell and Associates. Charles had always been meticulous about legal matters. If there was a will, if he'd left me something, he wouldn't have made it easy for Mark to sweep it under the rug. A sharp pain shot through my hip as the bus hit a pothole. I winced, and the woman across the aisle noticed. "You all right?" She was younger than me, maybe late 50s, with warm brown eyes and a no-nonsense ponytail. "Just fine," I lied. She frowned, then dug into her tote bag and pulled out a small bottle of ibuprofen. "Here. Long rides are hell on the joints." I hesitated, then took it. "Thank you." "Where you headed?" "Funeral," I said simply. Her expression softened. "I'm sorry." I didn't correct her. Didn't explain that I wasn't just going to mourn. I was going to fight. By the time we reached the transfer station, my legs were stiff as boards. I stood slowly, gripping the seat in front of me for balance. The woman, Janine, she'd told me, watched me with concern. "You need help?" "I've got it," I said, but my voice wavered as I stepped into the aisle. The bus lurched. My knee buckled. Janine caught my arm before I could fall. "Easy there." Embarrassment burned my cheeks. I hated this. Hated feeling fragile. Hated needing help. But I also couldn't afford to collapse in a bus station. "Thank you," I muttered. She didn't let go. "Which bus are you catching next?" I pulled out my ticket. The 2:15 to Redwood. She checked her watch. "That's not for another hour." "Come on, I'll buy you coffee." I wanted to refuse. But the truth was I was exhausted. And Janine had a steadiness about her, a lack of pity that made it easier to accept. The diner near the station was all vinyl booths and fluorescent lights. I cupped the steaming mug between my hands, letting the heat soothe my aching fingers. Janine stirred sugar into her coffee. "So, who died?" "My brother." "You too close." I thought about it. Once. Not so much at the end. She nodded like she understood. "Family's complicated." Understatement of the century. I took a sip, then asked, "What about you? Where are you headed?" "Visiting my daughter. She just had a baby." Her smile was proud but tired. "Third grandkid." You'd think I'd be used to it by now, but nope. Still feels like magic every time. Something in my chest twisted. Mark had never given me grandchildren. Lisa had made it clear that wasn't in the cards. "Too much responsibility," she'd said once, like children were an inconvenience instead of a gift. Janine studied me. "You got kids?" "One." I didn't elaborate. She must have sensed the bitterness in my voice because she changed the subject. "You got someone picking you up in Redwood?" "No." "How you getting to the funeral?" I hadn't thought that far ahead. "Taxi, I suppose." She snorted. "With what money? Those things you'll bleed you dry." I stiffened. She wasn't wrong. My cash was already stretched thin. Janine sighed, then pulled out her phone. "Tell you what. My cousin lives in Redwood. I'll call her, see if she can give you a lift." "You don't have to." "I know." She grinned. "But us old ladies gotta stick together, right?" For the first time in years, I felt something like hope. Janine's cousin, Marta, was a wiry woman in her 60s with a pickup truck and a smoker's rasp. She didn't ask questions when she picked me up, just nodded at my dress and said, "Funerals at St. Mary's, yeah? We'll get you there." The ride was quiet. I stared out the window as Redwood's familiar streets rolled by. The hardware store Charles used to own, the diner where we'd had milkshakes as kids. It hadn't changed much, but I had. Marta pulled up to the church. The parking lot was packed. My stomach knotted. I wasn't ready to see him, wasn't ready to face Mark. But I didn't have a choice. I straightened my dress, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the truck. "You need me to come in with you?" Marta asked. No, this was something I had to do alone. I walked toward the church, my steps slow but steady. The doors were open, the sound of organ music drifting out. And then I saw him, Mark, standing at the entrance, greeting mourners like he was the grieving heir. His head turned, his eyes locked onto mine. The color drained from his face. "Mom," I smiled. Surprise. The truth in the will. Mark's shock lasted only a second before his face hardened into the same practiced calm he used when closing business deals. But I saw the flicker of panic in his eyes, the same look he used to get as a boy when I caught him sneaking cookies before dinner. "Mom," he said again, stepping forward to block the church entrance. "What are you doing here? You shouldn't." "Shouldn't what?" I kept my voice steady, though my hands trembled at my sides. "Shouldn't say goodbye to my own brother?" A few mourners nearby turned to stare. Mark's jaw tightened. He grabbed my elbow, too tight, and leaned in. "We talked about this. You're not well enough to. Let go of me." I didn't raise my voice, but the ice in it made his fingers loosen. Lisa materialized beside him, her designer heels clicking sharply against the stone steps. Evelyn. Her smile was all teeth. What a surprise. I ignored her, staring straight at Mark. "I'm going inside. You can either step aside, or we can make a scene right here. Your choice." For a heartbeat, I thought he might actually try to stop me. Then his shoulders dropped, and he moved aside with a stiff nod. Victory burned in my chest as I walked past him. But the real battle was just beginning. The church smelled like lilies and old wood. Charles's casket sat at the front, closed, probably at his request. He'd never been one for showmanship. I made my way down the aisle, ignoring the whispers. "That's Charles's sister, isn't it? Thought she was in a home? Didn't know she was still alive, still coherent, still capable of showing up uninvited?" I took a seat in the front pew, right where family belonged. Mark and Lisa hovered behind me, but I didn't turn around. Let them stew. The service passed in a blur of hymns and hollow eulogies. Mark spoke for 10 minutes about Charles's legacy, never once mentioning the years of silence between them. I clenched my fists in my lap, my nails biting into my palms. Then the lawyer stood up. "Before we conclude," he said, adjusting his glasses, "there's a matter of Charles Carter's last will and testament." Every muscle in my body went rigid. Mark stiffened beside me. "This really isn't the time." Charles was very specific, the lawyer, Hartwell, continued. "He wanted it read today, in front of family." His eyes met mine. "All family." Lisa made a small, choked noise. Hartwell unsealed an envelope. The paper crackled in the silent church. "I, Charles Robert Carter, being of sound mind." I stopped breathing. "Do bequeath my entire estate, including the Elm Street property and all its holdings, to my sister, Evelyn Marie Carter, to be held in trust should she require assisted living arrangements, with full ownership and control otherwise." The air rushed from my lungs. The Elm Street property, the Victorian, the land, everything. Mark shot to his feet. "That's impossible. There must be some." "There's more," Hartwell said coolly. "In the event that any family member attempts to contest this will or influence Evelyn's decisions regarding the property, they will be immediately disinherited from any secondary beneficiaries." A deathly hush fell over the church. Then Lisa exploded. "This is outrageous. She can't possibly." "Lisa." Mark's voice was dangerously quiet. He turned to Hartwell. "We'll need to review the documents." "Of course." Hartwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. "My office is at your disposal." Then he looked straight at me. "Mrs. Carter, Charles left a separate letter for you. I'd be happy to deliver it privately." My throat tightened. A letter. One last word from the brother I hadn't spoken to in years. "Thank you," I managed. The reception at Charles's house, no, my house now, was a nightmare of stiff smiles and sideways glances. I stood in the corner, sipping weak punch, watching Mark work the room like a politician. Lisa cornered me near the staircase. "You can't possibly expect to manage that property," she hissed. "It's too much for someone in your condition." "My condition?" I arched a brow. "You mean being alive?" Her lips thinned. "Be reasonable, Evelyn. We'll handle everything. You won't have to lift a finger." How generous. I set my cup down. "Tell me, Lisa, when did you and Mark first visit Charles after his diagnosis? Was it before or after you found out he was updating his will?" Her face went scarlet. Before she could respond, Hartwell appeared at my elbow. "Mrs. Carter?" A word. He led me into Charles's study, the same one where we'd played checkers as children. The smell of old books and pipe tobacco hit me like a punch to the gut. Hartwell handed me an envelope. He wrote this 2 weeks before he passed. My name stared back at me in Charles's shaky handwriting. I tore it open. "Evelyn, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've won the battle against our scheming nephew. Don't look so surprised." I knew exactly what Mark was after the moment he started showing up with casseroles. A wet laugh escaped me. "The house is yours. Do whatever you want with it. Sell it, burn it down, turn it into a museum of our childhood misdeeds. Just promise me one thing. Don't let them bully you. Not again. I should have stepped in years ago. For that, I'm sorry. Your brother, Charles." The paper trembled in my hands. All these years, I'd thought he'd taken Mark's side. But he'd known. He'd always known. Hartwell cleared his throat. "There's one more thing. Charles arranged for a caretaker to assist you, should you choose to live here. A nurse named." The study door burst open. Mark stood there, his tie loosened, his eyes wild.
"Mom."
"We need to talk." I folded the letter slowly.
"No, Mark."
"We really don't." For the first time in his life, my son looked at me, really looked at me, and saw someone he couldn't control. And for the first time in years, I stood tall. The comeback. The first night in my brother's house, my house now, I slept in my old childhood bedroom. The wallpaper had changed, the furniture was different, but the view of the oak tree outside the window was the same. I lay awake most of the night, listening to the creaks and sighs of the old house, half expecting to hear Charles's footsteps in the hall. Morning came with golden light streaming through the curtains. I dressed slowly, my body protesting every movement, but the pain felt different today. It wasn't the dull ache of surrender, it was the burn of muscles waking up after too long at rest. Downstairs, I found Hartwell's promised caretaker waiting in the kitchen. "Mrs. Carter?" A man in his late 30s stood at the stove, scrambling eggs. He turned, and I nearly dropped my cane. "Javier." The nurse from Maplewood grinned, his spatula raised like a sword. "Surprise. Charles hired me last month. Said you'd need someone you could trust." My throat tightened. Another move my brother had made without me knowing. Another reminder that he'd been looking out for me, even when I thought he'd turned his back. "So," Javier said, plating the eggs, "what's first?" I looked around the kitchen, at the sunlight glinting off the copper pans, at the dust motes dancing in the air, and made my decision. First, we changed the locks. Mark showed up at noon. I watched from the parlor window as his BMW crunched up the gravel drive. He sat there for a full minute, probably expecting me to rush out and greet him. When I didn't, he finally emerged, his suit jacket slung over one shoulder like he was coming home after a long day. The doorbell rang. Javier raised an eyebrow at me. "Want me to get it?"
"No."
I adjusted the collar of my blouse. "This is my house. I'll answer my own door." Mark's smile when I opened the door was all practice charm.
"Mom."
"You look well." "I feel well." I didn't step aside to let him in. His smile faltered. "Can we talk?" "Inside. We can talk right here." A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Look, about the will." "It's done, Mark. The house is mine." "You can't possibly manage this place alone." The words burst out of him, sharp with frustration. "It's too big, the upkeep is." "Good thing I'm not alone then." I gestured to Javier, who gave a little wave from the hallway. Mark's eyes narrowed. That's the nurse from Maplewood. Observant as ever. "Mom, be serious. You're going to trust some stranger over your own son?" The words hung between us, heavy with all the unspoken betrayals. I studied my son's face, the perfect angles he'd inherited from his father, the little crease between his brows that was all me, and felt something inside me settle. "Yes," I said simply. "I am." The next month passed in a whirlwind of activity. I hired a lawyer of my own, a fierce woman named Rita, who took one look at Mark's petition to contest the will and laughed. "He doesn't have a leg to stand on," she said. "Charles's will is ironclad." With Javier's help, I went through the house room by room, deciding what to keep, what to donate, what to burn. In the attic, we found boxes of old photos, Charles and me as gap-toothed children, our parents standing stiffly in their Sunday best, Mark as a baby in my arms. "You keeping these?" Javier asked, holding up a snapshot of Mark's high school graduation. I took the photo, tracing the edges. "Yes," I said after a moment. "But not here." That afternoon, I mailed them to Mark's office with no note. Some ties shouldn't, be completely severed. The idea came to me in the middle of the night. I woke Javier at 3 a.m., shaking his shoulder in excitement. "An artist's retreat," I said. "For seniors." He blinked sleepily. "What?" "The house has 8 bedrooms, 2 parlors, that huge backyard. We'll take in 5, maybe 6 residents at a time. Painters, writers, musicians, people who think their best years are behind them." I grinned. "We'll prove them wrong." By dawn, we were sketching plans at the kitchen table. By week's end, Rita had filed the paperwork. The local paper ran a story. At 72, Evelyn Carter opens doors for creative seniors. The phone started ringing off the hook with inquiries. Lisa sent a terse email about proper zoning procedures. I forwarded it to Rita and deleted it. Opening day dawned bright and clear. We'd taken in 4 residents so far, a jazz pianist with Parkinson's, a poet recovering from a stroke, a sculptor who'd lost his wife the year before, and Janine, the woman from the bus, who turned out to be a brilliant watercolorist. I stood on the porch, watching them set up easels in the garden, their laughter floating on the breeze. Javier handed me a lemonade. "You did good, Mrs. C." "We're just getting started," I said. Inside, the house hummed with life. The piano in the parlor, the clatter of dishes in the kitchen, the scrape of a chair as someone settled in to write. The old walls seemed to sigh in relief, as if they'd been waiting decades for this. I sipped my lemonade and smiled. They'd left me behind. But I'd come back. Not just for the house, not just for Charles, but for myself. And that made all the difference. Did Evelyn's story resonate with you? Have you ever been underestimated or written off because of your age? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tales of resilience and second chances. Remember, it's never too late to rewrite your story.
See you next time.